So this is the usual time that I would be coming in. So let's give it a start.
Okay.
We'll join.
Okay. So, as you may have heard, yeah, today is the last of the Four Noble Truths, which we're going to come up with a new term for today. And it sounds like this last kind of part of the four will help us kind of contextualize all the truths, so to speak. And really, it's colloquially known as the truth of the path. And then, of course, it's the Eightfold Path, which was prescribed by the Buddha. And as I said in the email, maybe I'm just totally projecting on the world of lay practitioners, but not a lot of people have that committed to memory. And I am one of them, so I'm not going to name them all right now. But it is good to know that they can be broken up into these three major sections of wisdom, ethics, and meditation. And that might just be helpful to hold those three. And we'll see what gets covered today. I will also just say, not, that we talked about this, but just from my understanding is the word right can sometimes be misleading because it's not a right or wrong. It's sort of more appropriate or truthful or honest or aligned or something along those lines. And maybe Phuntsok will speak to that too. But then just, for anybody new that's here today or that's watching on the YouTube channel, these teachings are given by Phuntsok, who's been a Buddhist monk for over 20 years and now holds these circles every 2 weeks on Zoom, and it was in person for many years in Brooklyn. And they are taking the Buddhist teachings and really helping us integrate them into daily living and understanding how we can use them very practically, and so that they're not lofty or kind of these not that lofty is bad. It's super enjoyable and fun, but we also want to, feel nourished and feel connected to the practices in our daily life. So Phuntsok embodies and holds that intention deeply in these teachings. And if you're moved to donate, I'll put a couple of different ways that can be done: Venmo, PayPal, and Phuntsok's Patreon. Apologize for any noise you might hear in my background. I'm going to go on mute now. But yeah, with that, I'll pass it over to Phuntsok. So thank you for listening and being here today.
Thank you very much, Nizam. Yes, the writing for the email for the past, the past few emails that you've been receiving, they've been composed by Nizam, and this one especially was quite, I would say, wow, I'm quite impressed. Did a very nice job in presenting it and expanding and preparing you for tonight's class. It was actually in itself a kind of a teaching, which was very nice. Okay. So as usual, we will begin with meditation, and it will be the same kind of, as you are noticing more and more, my meditation are becoming less and less elaborate. For those of you who used to sit with me when I used to be at 3 Jewels, and I don't know how many years ago, the meditation used to be like 20 minutes just to prepare to meditate while we're meditating. Now the 20 minutes is like, okay, meditation is done already. So less and less elaboration and more into you finding more connecting with meditation in your own way, in your own sort of, instead of presenting things that may sound dogmatic because there are terms that are specific to a specific community. So just saying them to people who are not used to them may not be, it might be difficult for them. Okay, so for those of you who are very used to the old way, I'm very sorry. Please, everybody. Just, what the hints are, so you follow along the hints, okay? All right. And we'll go into the fourth of the Four Noble Truths. All right. All right, so I'm gonna get my bells ready. And I'm sorry, I don't quite have the handle of the bells. I think because of the setting of the audio, when I click on the bell, you probably hear the very first part of it and it goes silent. And when I'm listening for the bell to finish and you don't hear anything. So take the silence as part of it. All right, so we're going to meditate. So communicate to the community of your being that you're going to meditate, and listen to all the different parts, how they communicate back to you, wanting to cooperate, the body, your energy, your mind, your breath, and just let them guide you. Let your body, let that intelligence in your body guide you. How does it want to be? Because it knows how to get to meditation. How does it should be? Listen to it. How your legs should be, how your torso should be, how the arms and the shoulders should be. And when you bring attention and awareness to those places, feel that they're already beginning to touch the meditative state through awareness of a sense of calm arising that you're touching, that you're tasting through the body itself, a sense of pleasantness. The head and neck centered, so there's no need to hold them in place. They're holding themselves in place. Mouth, teeth, and tongue resting in their natural places. And allow your eyes to rest in whatever posture suits you. Close, slightly open, halfway open, fully open, whatever works for you. Whatever actually gives you a greater sense of the meditative taste. Closer to calmness, closer to vividness. And once you've checked your posture, you listen to that intelligence in the body and you feel, okay, now this is the posture, and try to stay in it without forcing yourself to stay in it. Because you may make some adjustments here and there throughout the meditation, but just be aware of the meditative state itself that you are touching, and try as you make adjustments to go deeper into it. If you have to make adjustments in the legs, mindfully make the adjustment, and as you make it, try to stay in the experience of the measure of calm, the measure of pleasantness, the measure of peace, the measure, those experiences connected to meditation. And at the end of the adjustment, notice that you should be deeper in those experiences. And that tells you that you are actually listening rather than just imposing. Okay, now bring attention to the breath and notice those signs in the breath itself, a sense of calming, a sense of pleasantness, a distinctiveness of knowing this is breathing, a sense of this is happening now-ness, a sense of the mind collecting itself. When you bring it to the breath, there's a sense of the mind collecting itself around the breath. And some people can do this with just a sense of will. Now I'm committed to this experience called meditation. And some need some sort of start. And we can use the breath, consciously, deliberately taking a deep breath with the intention that this is to set you in, to sort of sign the commitment. Take a nice deep breath with that intention. Hold for a second or two, and then release. And as you release, let go, let go, let go, let go, let go in the body, let go, let go, let go in the breath, let go, let go, let go in the mind. Notice the signs enhancing slightly. Notice the signs enhancing the body and enhancing in the breath. Notice that your mind is touching those signs, rejoice witnessing them. And at the end of the breath, just let the breath come back by itself and staying where the breath took you. Staying in the level of calm, staying in the level of pleasantness, staying in the level of focus, staying in the level of vividness, whatever degree that the big breath took you into, try to stay there. And you will notice yourself sort of automatically breathing in a somewhat different way, and becomes like a skillful way of breathing so that you can go deeper and stay in the measure of meditative state that you are now touching. So no matter what the experiences are, once you make that decision, once you make that commitment, must consider that every experience you have from this moment on is a meditative experience, no matter how familiar it may be outside of meditation. Just like you go to a different neighborhood or a different state or even a different country and there's a Starbucks. Just because there's a Starbucks in your neighborhood doesn't mean that you didn't leave your neighborhood, okay? It's the Starbucks in that other neighborhood, in that other country, okay? Consider it that way. And continue to just observe the breath without the need to control it. As you breathe in, you just know you're breathing in. As you breathe out, you just know you are breathing out, noticing the signs enhancing with every passing moment, the calm, the pleasantness. And with the mind, there might be some inner sensations that are arising, that have arisen, connected to any one of the senses, the sense of touch, the sense of smell, the sense of most people, it's a sense of hearing, some people it's some kind of inner visual, whatever it is for you. Just be aware of it while you maintain yourself in the experiencing of the calm, the pleasantness. That's the meditative state. You're staying in there and letting yourself go deeper into it. And a time to sort of help stabilize where we are, like putting yourself in cruise mode, cruise control. So observe 3 conscious breaths. Like before, deliberately, gently breathe in. And as you release, really let go in the body, in the breath, in the mind. Notice yourself going deeper into those signs. Rejoice witnessing the depth. Stay in the depth as you breathe in. Staying in that depth, make another commitment breath, a deep breath. And again, release. You let yourself go deeper into the calm, deeper into the pleasantness, deeper into the clarity, deeper into the radiance, deeper into the focus. Stay in that depth, breathe in. Stay in that depth, breathe in. And the last and third conscious breath, through gently, fully breathe in, staying as you do, staying. And again, let go. And you might even notice the breath is not anxious to come back. The breath almost wants to stop. So don't force it to stop. Don't force it to come back. Just observe it. And try to stay the breath your mind, for your attention. Then bring that up. And for those of you, you already know, it's some pointer to your enlightened essence. However, whatever helps you to bring attention to that. And there's a measure, no matter what the percentage is, 0.00001%, 0.1%, whatever that measure, 1%, whatever that measure may be for you. Try to stay in that measure, that the measure of, yes, indeed, this presence is right in front of me. Your future enlightenment, your enlightenment nature, the infallible guide who will help you fulfill your highest potential. And towards that presence, have a deep sense of respect, a deep sense of trust. And a deep sense of gratitude, a gratitude that holds the conviction, now that you have some degree of conscious contact, it is assured that you will fulfill your ultimate aim. So have a sense of gratitude with that conviction that it is done. With a wish for a more greater conscious sense of awareness of this presence, especially at times when you need guidance. So whatever is blocking you from that, see a light coming from that presence and washing away whatever is in your, whatever is obstructing you, whatever is in your way, whatever is causing you to be misaligned. And watch for those moments when you feel, yes, that's it. I'm connected, I'm aligned. And try to stay in them. And understand why you're here, how this session is going to address whatever concerns you may have in your life. And let your mind be open to the gifts that it may help you find in this session. For truly your sake. And because it's truly for your sake, it is by extension for the benefit of all you encounter, all you care about. Bring that bright presence to the crown of your head and open your heart, open your mind to it being in your conscious awareness. As a sign of that light descends to the crown of your head. Watch it slowly illuminate as it descends until it finally arrives in your heart. And then it sends rays of light throughout your being, your body, energy, energetic, physical, emotional, mental, all the different dimensions of you. and feel ready to receive. Get ready to end the meditation. Notice that you are indeed in a meditative state. Notice the signs in the body. Notice the signs energetically. Notice the signs in the breath. Notice the signs in the mind. Upon witnessing them, to whatever measure they may be present, rejoice. And with the readiness to come out of the meditation, take a nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, it's sort of reconnect with your immediate surroundings, communicate to your sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Are you still hearing the bell? How many bells did you hear? Did you hear any? 0? Oh my. I guess the bell sound doesn't really, it's not picked up at all. It just goes silent, huh?
I think the noise reduction algorithms are better than ever these days.
Yeah. We have to talk to the computer and say, that's not noise. Okay. All right, everyone. Everyone who has had any any contact with Buddhism for whatever period of time, I mean, in any sincere way, comes out at least knowing that, oh, those people believe in, have something called the Four Noble Truths. And of course, that's supposed to, remember what I said sometime earlier, that the supposedly 84,000 teachings of the Buddha, not that someone actually went and counted them and came up with 84,000, but it's just in a number that means a lot. Okay. That's the Indian tradition for you. With the Tibetans, do you know how to say a lot? 100. Oh, 100. That means a lot. We can't count it beyond that. But the Indians have to say 84,000. It's at least it shows we try to count. So the Buddha, the teachings of the Buddha, or the Buddhist teaching, is sort of divided into depending on the right now on the culture that you encounter it with, into what is referred to as Mahayana. This is the kind of Buddhism that you encounter in, if you take India as the central place, above India, that's mostly Mahayana, that ended up there. And below India, mostly Theravada is found there. And within Mahayana, there's a third kind called Vajrayana. So I'm not here to give you a bit of a history about Buddhist, the different branches of Buddhist philosophy, but rather I introduce them. So consider these three different sort of dramatic interpretation of the Four Noble Truths. That's what they are essentially. Dramatic interpretations of the Four Noble Truths, or dramatic implementations of the Four Noble Truths. So it's not like only one of them has the Four Noble Truths and the other ones have something else. They all have the Four Noble Truths, and they are all they're all practicing, and their practice is a means of demonstrating and exercising the Four Noble Truths. They all recognize the first they all recognize that it has a cause. They may have different emphasis on what they call the cause. For example, one might say it's craving that is the major source, major cause. And another would say, no, it's ignorance. And not that they disagree with each other. Not that one would say, no, it's not ignorance, and the other said, no, it's not craving. It's just that one would make the emphasis on craving, another would make the emphasis on ignorance. Okay. And as far as the third truth is concerned, that's where they will put on the boxing gloves and and might even start something. Okay. That's where they, it's presenting what is the finite, what is the final, right? What is the state when you're completely healed, completely healthy, completely whole? What is that state like? They all agree it's good. Exactly what's in there makes it good. That's where they can't seem to come up with something very where they agree with each other. But at least they say it's good, and they're all looking for it. And how do they get there? That's what we're going to talk about tonight, which is the fourth noble truth, which is the path. How do you get to cessation? How do you get to the end of suffering? And remember, suffering is not necessarily when something incredibly painful is happening to you. It's any condition that while you're experiencing it, there's a part of you that does not want to experience it. Okay, that condition, that state, that's what you can say. Generally speaking, that's what makes something the experience of suffering. So it doesn't have to be it's pizza, it's suffering. No, it's pizza with marshmallows, that's suffering. It doesn't have to be anything specific. Okay, some people do have pizza with marshmallows with the pizza. Okay. All right. And it doesn't really matter. And when you describe it that way, you can understand why some people are doing certain things, and they will say that it is pleasant for them. And some other people might be doing the same thing, and they might say it is unpleasant for them. And you might even, I guess most of us fall into the category where you might be rather there's an experience that you need to go through, but as you're going through it, it is unpleasant. Now, it doesn't mean that you should stop doing what you're supposed to be doing just because it is unpleasant. It's like taking medicine, for example. That's the example given. Going through the experience of taking the medicine might be unpleasant, but just because it's unpleasant doesn't mean that, oh, that's suffering, stop taking the medicine. Okay? But rather, the very fact that we have such a condition where even something that might even be good for us, we experience it as painful. Just having that condition itself is suffering. Okay? Like when you are disciplining your child, what you are making them go through is painful for them, but just because it's painful for them doesn't mean that they mustn't do it. But actually, it's going to bring them something better. But the fact that that is something that is unpleasant for them, that condition is part of, fits the definition of suffering. Okay, and of course everything else, a truck running over your foot. Okay, of course that's suffering. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a truck running over your foot. So when we understand that, and what we have to do with the very first truth is to acknowledge it, acknowledge the fact that it is happening. Once you acknowledge the fact that it is happening, then you will become interested in why. But if we do not allow ourselves to really be aware of what is happening, it's the first noble truth simply says, or not simply says, but you could say it says simply, be honest with your experience. Be honest with your experiences, whatever it may be. Okay, be honest with it. And that honesty will allow us to, will begin to open our eyes so that we can actually see what is connected to this experience. What are the things that are propping up this experience? What are the things that are making this experience possible to have? Okay. And one reason you could say why the first noble truth is referred to as that word suffering. And this is where I have a bit of a problem with people who make light of suffering. Just because you're supposed to be aware of it, you're supposed to be honest with it, doesn't mean that you're supposed to flip it and call it good. Everything is good. That's not what arriving at the first noble truth is supposed to be about. Okay? It is suffering. It is something that you're experiencing, and as you're experiencing it, there's a major part of you that is wishing that you were experiencing something else, that you were not experiencing it. Okay? And does it mean that you should be enjoying it and there's something wrong with you? No. What you're going through is real, and you should be honest with it. Okay? And only then will you, so this attitude of being honest with it opens our minds to be able to see what are the things that are propping it up. And once you begin to be aware of the things that are propping it up, then because the experience is truly unwanted, then you will want to invest energy in doing something about them. What is it that you're connected to that you should not be connected to? What is it that you're not connected to that you should be connected to? This will become clearer and clearer. But you will be interested in investing energy only when you really are honest with, this is something that I don't want. Okay? It's the case where someone is, I mean, there are many different levels where someone might be addicted to something. Okay. And the reason that you could say, one of the reasons, or one of the major reasons that they can't seem to come out of it is because they're not allowing themselves to really see where they are. There is a sense, there is an expert, or not an expert, but a masterful, a mastery of distraction taking place. And that is something that we are all doing at some degree, to some measure or another. If you are suffering and you're not doing something to get yourself out of the suffering, to some degree, we are distracting ourselves. To some degree, we're not honest with what is going on. The purpose of suffering is to be overcome. That is its purpose. Its purpose is not for you to stay with it forever, for you to have some sort of beautiful relationship with it. Okay? The purpose is for you to know it intimately, so that you will do everything in your power to never encounter it in the future. Okay? You know everything, all the nuances that are connected to it that will bring you close to it. But you can only know that by being present with it, by knowing it. That's what perhaps some people get confused about when you're asked to be present with it, to know it. It seems to be translated, come on, get to like it. Okay, have a different perspective about it. Okay, no. The reason to be intimately aware of it so that you can know for certain that I will not have this again in the future. I know everything that is connected to it. And as far as the cause is concerned, the main thing is we are misaligned. That is the cause. Okay, it seems like I'm throwing a third thing. They were talking about ignorance and talking about craving, and I seem to be throwing a third thing. I'm sort of being a diplomat. I'm using both. We are misaligned. We are misaligned with our true nature. The very condition, it is a very nice poetic way of saying it. The very condition of suffering is a symptom of being misaligned. Misaligned with our nature, with who we are at the fundamental level. We are misaligned with that. And you can take this and it doesn't necessarily have to be some ultimate misalignment, okay? Take it from the place where you are, okay? Being honest with wherever you are. That's the process of beginning to be in alignment, okay? And gradually that will take you to more refined. And the third is what I was trying to emphasize last time is if we cannot have a vision, any kind of vision of what the absence will be like, not that we necessarily have to imagine it. It will be a place with golden rivers and apples that taste like mangoes. I don't know. We don't have to use concepts to imagine it. But the thing is, we have to arrive at some deep level within us of a degree of conviction that it is possible. If we're not able to have a vision, a sense of the possibility of it, we will not find ourselves being able to invest energy in the fourth noble truth, which is the path. You may know the path from beginning to end, be able to recite it from beginning to end, but you will not find the energy to actually apply them, because the conviction that is necessary to apply them, the conviction that is necessary to give us the resources that give us, at least give us in, put us in connection with the resources that are necessary to achieve the cessation, we will find ourselves not able to. And because we're not able to, we are holding to this fantasy that we are following the path. Eventually we'll become discouraged. And discouragement is the greatest demon ever that could ever exist. The greatest demon ever. Okay. Now, what is the path? The path as it is presented, don't think of it as this is what the Buddhists present as their path. Rather, think of it as try to universalize it. Try to see even how other traditions, how other philosophies present the path, the path, okay? It is called the Eightfold Noble Path. And as Nizam pointed out, they can be sort of summarized into 3 practices. Okay. Let me summarize the practice. Let me summarize the 3 practices in this way for you. You already know them. You have the names everybody's using, but I'm going to present them to you this way. What is driving your behavior? Your behavior and how you're relating with yourself, how you relate with others, how you relate with your environment. What conviction is driving your behavior? Okay. How you speak, how you act, how you ruminate in your mind, the kind of thought that you allow to run in your mind. Okay, that's behavior. And this will determine what is it that you're able to bring energy to. What will allow you to bring, what in what way it will allow you to collect and use resources. And or I can put it this way, what do you find yourself naturally obsessed with? Okay. You may not necessarily be aware of what you're obsessed with. A lot of us are not necessarily aware of what we're obsessed with. It's when we take a step back, we do that a lot. We think about that a lot. We do this a lot. So that's what we naturally find ourselves obsessed with. So gathering energy. What is it that naturally, where we find ourselves naturally resourceful with? And the last one is what convictions we hold. What convictions we hold. So these are the three main, you could say, practices. And we do this all the time. You can even say our experience of reality is basically an exercise of these three. We find ourselves behaving a certain way. Why do we behave? We behave because we expect a certain kind of result from our behavior, right? And we do get results, not necessarily what we want, but we initiate those behaviors with the intention of getting some kind of result. Okay? So the thing is your behavior in alignment with reality in such a way that your behavior actually brings about the result that you intend to have? Okay. When your behavior, the way you think, the way you ruminate, the way you speak, the way you act, the way you behave, the way you relate with others, with yourself, with the environment, when that behavior doesn't give you the results that makes you feel at peace, the result that makes you feel, okay, I'm satisfied, there's something amiss. That behavior is not in alignment with reality. And these three inform each other. They help each other. You can deliberately behave a certain way that will make you refocus. You can focus a certain way that can make you behave a certain way. You can deliberately focus a certain way that will make you have different convictions. Or you can make yourself have certain convictions that will that will make you focus a certain way, that will make you behave a certain way. So they're always together. They're always working with each other. So when one is misaligned, then the others become misaligned. Misaligned means you're not able to arrive at peace. You're not able to arrive at satisfaction because of your behavior, because of your focus, and because of your convictions. Okay. And in what way do we behave? In what way do we focus? In what way do we gain convictions? That's what the Eightfold Noble Path is about. There are parts of the eight that is connected with behavior. There are parts of the eight that with conviction. There are parts of the eight that helps with the focus. Okay. And they're usually presented as right effort, right view, right speech, right intention, things like that. As Nazam pointed out in the beginning, just because they use the word right, it's not in the way that we think of right and wrong, but rather, I'm glad that he chose that term. Is it in alignment with with reality? Okay. Is it in alignment with reality? That's what makes it right. So you could say aligned view, aligned thinking, aligned speech. Okay. So think of it, think of the Eightfold Noble Path more in that perspective. Now, the way to engage the Eightfold Noble Path is to see how, not so much take the word that's in the beginning, the right part, take it away and just think view, right? The very first one is view. View here meaning your conviction about reality. Not necessarily your conscious conviction about reality, but rather your unconscious conviction about reality. How much are you aware of your convictions about reality? And they come up in our actions, the actions that we find ourselves that are automatic. The actions, the behaviors that are automatic points to our convictions. And remember, these are not things that we are consciously thinking or doing. These are not things that we are consciously intending to do. Sometimes we might consciously intend to do something, but we find ourselves doing completely something else. Why is it that we why is it that we behave in a different way? Why is it that we act in a different way? Because of the real conviction we have. Okay, real conviction is not necessarily, well, real conviction for the most part for people who are in samsara, their conviction is completely misaligned, completely messed up. Okay. We have experiences, and instead of being with the experience and allowing the experience to tell us what it is, we superimpose superimpose a view as to what it is. And this view that we superimpose comes from our miseducation about reality. Okay. And just an example would be like, take this psychological experience, a psychological example. Someone is convinced that I'm not lovable, right? And it's not something that they necessarily are consciously aware of, but it is a deep conviction. I am not lovable. And what does that conviction do to them? It makes them behave a certain way so that they can witness that they're not lovable. It makes them think focus on certain thoughts. That's the focus. Makes them focus on certain thoughts that will reinforce that conviction and make them behave, make them speak, make them act in such a way to constantly prove to themselves that conviction. So every conviction, in a way, seeks to be sort of validated. And unfortunately, misaligned convictions, they distort validations. They seek validation so that they can remain. And what they do is that they distort experience so that they can have an incorrect validation. So by incorrect validation, I mean a validation that is not really in alignment with the experience. So you could say a made-up validation. An example would be everyone, the person who has the conviction, I'm not lovable. Everyone is giving that person compliment all day and they don't hear anything. And one person gives a criticism and that's the only thing that happened during that day. And they keep repeating it. See, I was criticized. See, I was criticized. I'm not lovable. So that's what I mean by it's a messed up way of validating. And it blinds the person to actually be able to witness all the compliments that the person received. Okay. And that person in some instance, so they have that view, I am not lovable. And that that view, that conviction will determine what kind of thoughts they will entertain, what kind of intentions they will have when they are relating with the world. I'm not lovable, so they behave, and they will begin to behave in such a way where they will think things, they will focus on, they will think mostly things about themselves to reinforce that. And they will speak like either making their faults blow them up, exaggerate them to themselves, and they will relate with others from that perspective and almost behaving in such a way to elicit the validation that they're not lovable. And it's not something necessarily that I will say such and such so that I can get validation that I'm not lovable, but it becomes automatic. Then let's say an opportunity comes for them, for that person to invalidate or prove that this conviction is false. Okay, someone found them to be very loving, and then they invite them to some loving gathering to honor them, something, think of something like that, right? To honor how loving, how lovable they are. What will that conviction do? And this is where the thing about focus comes in. That person will either become all of a sudden confused. That person may become confused, incapable of making very simple decisions, like what should I wear to go to that? What should I wear to go to that event? Or they might even make themselves do something to the point where either they don't go to the event, or their capacity to focus is so skewed that they will be able to pick up on signs that will make it impossible for them to get there. So the resources that would have been available for them to get there, all of a sudden is no longer available to them. They seem to not longer have access to them, to those resources. And all this is because of the conviction that they're holding. It's not that these resources are not available. It's not that that person's mind is naturally confusing, but the capacity to be obsessed, or the capacity to gather resources, or the capacity to focus is directed towards something else, to prop up the conviction that they're not lovable. That's the view, that's the conviction that they have. It creates intentions to prop it up. It creates behavior in their speech. It creates behavior not only in their speech, but also in how they interact with the world. Okay. And it will determine also what habits that they will develop. The habits have to do with what is it that they find themselves naturally doing every day, even though they hate doing those things every day, but for some reason they find the energy to do them. Okay, so that becomes what is the path of least resistance for them. The path of least resistance for that person. So if it was in alignment with the nature of with reality, with truth, with honesty, then that the habit would have been a habit towards wholesomeness, a habit towards health. But because there's a lack of conviction in health, in wholesomeness, but conviction is directed towards something else, and that's where the energy goes in. That's where the focus goes in. When you find yourself wanting to focus, and at that moment you find yourself incapable of focusing, is because we are not convinced in what we seek to focus in. There's something within us that is blocking us from being able to find the natural capacity to focus. And what leads to focus is the habit. And so we find ourselves naturally finding energy to applying effort towards a particular direction. And this effort leads to habits. What is it that you find yourself naturally doing all the time? And your reservoir of energy, what is it that it is sort of like, you could say, what do you call that? When you mark something for something, like this is for this is for that. It is reserved, no, not reserved. What is that? It is earmarked. Okay, like that. It is, your energy becomes earmarked. It's not that you have no energy, but your energy was earmarked to perpetuate your conviction. So listen, when you find yourself looking to focus and you're not able to focus, it's not that you cannot focus. When you need energy to invest in a particular endeavor and you can't find it, it's not because you don't have energy. It's because your reservoir of energy, your capacity for focus, have been earmarked for your conviction. That means whatever it is that you cannot find the energy for, whatever it is that you cannot find yourself able to focus on, it means you have not done the process of arriving at conviction concerning it. If you're convinced, whatever direction you're convinced, your conviction is not necessarily because you have conviction, you're doing the right thing. You have found truth. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're aligned. We can become convinced of whatever we want to be convinced of, and we witness that all the time, especially unfortunately, in political areas. These people are convinced that this is the truth, and what happens to them with their view, it makes them behave a certain way. It makes them have certain kind of speech. It makes them think a certain way. It makes them apply effort in a particular way. It makes them have a certain kind of behavior that becomes a habit for them. And it naturally makes them be able to focus their energy. They find the capacity to focus their energy in a particular way. Okay. And they become, lastly, you could say, absorbed. They become absorbed in something. Like some people, that's what you might call negatively speaking. Some people are caught up in a certain bubble. So they are absorbed into that, where it becomes self-perpetuating. Okay. So all this, to become absorbed in something, to apply effort towards something, to develop a habit, a certain daily habit, all these things are necessary for all the experiences that we have. If the experience that we have summarized as being unpleasant, unwanted, that means each one of those steps were not in alignment. Because they were not in alignment, then we find ourselves not able to have effort when we want it, where we want to apply effort. We're not able to focus where we want to focus. We're not able to be absorbed where we want to be absorbed. And we even find ourselves not able to have the behaviors that we want to have. Like, for example, there's a part of me that is not really convinced that meditation is of any use. So no matter to what degree intellectually I say I praise meditation, I will not find myself able to make myself sit to meditate. And when I force myself to meditate, the energy is gone. The ability to develop it as a habit is gone. And of course, I'm not able to be able to experience the state when you're in meditative absorption. But when you're able to, at some degree, have a conviction, then everything is sort of fall into place. So it begins with what is your conviction? Your conviction will determine what kind of thinking you allow your mind to do, what intentions you will have. And this will determine how you will behave in the world, how you will behave towards yourself, how you will behave towards your environment. If someone is convinced that all I need is to make as much money as possible, then that's it. Then their behavior will make them make as much money as possible, even though they may be destroying the environment. And they don't see destroying the environment as something that should be concerned about, to be concerned with. But unfortunately, since they live in something called an environment, eventually they will impact themselves. Okay. So that comes from what is it that person is convinced with, and what is it that their mind is always running on all the time? What is it that they plan to do all the time? And the kind of what communications do they engage in? Like you may encounter some people who are constantly engaged in negative communication, always picking up the negative stuff. And there's some people who are engaged in what you might call fantasy. They're always talking about fantasy, nothing real. Okay. Sorry to use bad examples. And some people, and of course, with why do you speak? What is driving your speech? What is driving your communication? What is driving your relating with others? Is it in alignment with the nature, with reality? Okay. Then, of course, you will in your behavior, it will make you not only communicate a certain way, but also act a certain way. Okay. And this over time will build up into what you might call your path of least resistance. What is it that you'll naturally, an example what I would give about meditation. Oh, I'm so tired, I can't meditate. Oh, I have no energy to meditate. And I try to meditate, and I'm just falling asleep. And someone says, oh, your favorite movie is playing right now. And all of a sudden, my capacity to focus is like 100%. All the energy that I thought I didn't have, it's there. I'm able to watch the movie for the whole 3 hours or 4 hours, where I couldn't meditate for 5 minutes because I was falling asleep. Okay. So somewhere within me, I'm more convinced, here it is, I'm more convinced of that the movie will benefit me than the meditation will benefit me. That's why I naturally find the energy to watch the movie, even though it's late. Because I'm convinced that the movie will benefit me more than the meditation. And this is not some intellectual thing. Of course, if you ask me in an intellectual way and I'll write a dissertation, I'll write several volumes as to why meditation is more beneficial than watching a movie. But at the deep level of conviction, that's not what is there. That's not my truth. That's not my true view. Okay? And we can only arrive at true view by observing our lives honestly. Don't say, don't say I'm an impatient person just to be nice. If you're an impatient person, yes, say I'm impatient because you observed it. That's wisdom. That's being in alignment with truth, at least the truth as it is appearing to you. But just for some false sense of humility, and you're not really somebody who's impatient, but it's the nice thing to say, oh, I'm a very impatient person. You're not being truthful there. That's not in alignment with that is not wisdom. Okay. I'm afraid to use that word. Can I use that word? I can use that word. I'm really an asshole. Sorry, I use that word. But don't say it just because, it's trendy. Just because, it's spiritually trendy to talk bad about yourself, kind of thing, right? That would not be in alignment with reality. But if that's what you are, and you say it, you're speaking, that's wisdom. Doesn't mean that stay that way for the rest of your life, you have found your true nature. That's not what it means. But wherever you are, be honest with it. That's the only way, if you need to transcend it, that you will be able to transcend it. Something is bothering you, don't say it is not bothering you. Just because perhaps it should not be bothering you. You understand? Just because perhaps it should not be bothering you and it's bothering you, don't say that it's not bothering you when it is. That's saying it's bothering you and it's bothering you, that's in alignment with wisdom. So it's like for someone to actually achieve transcendence, for someone to actually achieve cessation, they have to begin with the path of honesty. This is who I am. This is where I am right now. It's ugly, it's not pretty, but this is where I am right now. By being this level of honesty, having this level of honesty, then we can actually begin the process of transcending it. Otherwise, we will just decorate the ugliness, and on the surface, it may appear to not be ugly, but in reality, it is ugly, and we will never be able to transcend this ugliness. Okay. I'm a compassionate person, when in reality, I'm just afraid of people's opinions, bad people's opinions about myself. If I'm allowing myself to know, I'm just afraid of people's bad opinions about myself, then I can transcend that. Then I can really be compassionate. Otherwise, my compassion is not real. I'm just disguising a weakness and giving it a noble name. The view to have in the beginning is honesty. Begin with honesty. Don't worry about what society calls it, what the books call it, good or bad. The main thing is to be honest, and being honest with it doesn't necessarily mean that is your identity for the rest of your existence or the rest of your life. Okay, but just being honest with it. And by being honest with it, everything else will sort of fall into place. You will find the energy you need if you need to transcend. You will find yourself able to focus where you need to focus. You will find yourself absorbing yourself in the thing that you need to absorb yourself in so that you can transcend. Sorry, I did not list the Eightfold Noble Path in the way that you are familiar to hearing them, but I hope you heard them. Okay. And I deliberately did not speak them the way you remember them so that your mind can be forced to look at it from a different perspective, so that that same curiosity that connected you to them in the first place, and that first sort of magic that began to take place when you heard them for the first time, that they are reignited afresh, anew, so that they become not just nice things to know, but actually things that actually make you begin to act in your life. Okay. And the main thing to take from this, I hope, not just that he didn't list the 8. Other than that, what the main thing for you to take is to understand, when you do not find energy, when you find yourself not able to apply effort, examine your convictions. What could be your convictions? Your actions are pointing, your natural actions are pointing to your convictions. The path to wisdom is actually taking hold of your ignorance and walking together. If you do not go and find your ignorance, you will not be able to get to wisdom. You have to find your ignorance. That is, this is my misunderstanding. And how do you know this is your misunderstanding? You look at it. And then you take its hands and you walk with it. That's how you get to wisdom. Okay. I'm convinced that I cannot be loved. And it's not something that I'm consciously aware of. But in my behavior, the way I speak, the way I behave, act towards others, the way I shrink, the way I expose myself, if I look at those honestly, they will point to, that's your conviction. You don't believe that you can be loved. That's why you sabotage every opportunity for you to be loved. Because according to your reality, you're not supposed to be loved. So avoid them. And that itself has its depth, its reason, its cause. But we cannot get to it until we see that. And take the hand of, I cannot be loved, and walk with it. Walk with it. Is this person not loving me? And be honest with what you're experiencing. Oh, there's a little bit of love there. Is that person not loving me? Oh, that person doesn't like that behavior that I did. It's not me that the person doesn't love. And you keep walking. And eventually, as you walk with your ignorance hand in hand, experiencing life with ignorance hand in hand, eventually, guess what happens? It's not that you encounter wisdom and wisdom say, okay, ignorance, go away. Ignorance transforms and it becomes wisdom. Right. Okay. Any questions? Thank you very much for listening, and I also applaud your patience with this delivery, because it's definitely not any normal delivery on the Eightfold Noble Path.
I have a question, Phuntsok.
Yes.
Well, firstly, I'm sort of hearing, and maybe it's two questions. One is in a way, in the way you're presenting it, that right view is sort of the root of all of the other ones, but at the same time, they all impact each other.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one question. Sounds like a statement, but I think it's a question. I guess my question is that true? And then my other question is, or is that what you're sharing? And then my other question is, I guess I'm surprised that the fourth noble truth doesn't contain something about looking at our concept of self, because I know in Buddhism so much hinges on that. I guess that view specifically.
Yes.
Not just am I lovable or do I deserve this or that, but what is our understanding of the self? And so I'm curious why that's not included in the Eightfold Path explicitly, like, our sense of impermanence and emptiness and all of these things.
Yeah. So the first, when I started to talk, I started about those three schools, those three approach to the Buddha's teachings. One of the view is, yes, definitely it's the view of who you are, your convictions about who you are. That's what I mentioned. I'm not lovable. So that's a conviction about the self, right? And our conviction about the self, and I would prefer to use the term identity rather than self. And of course, identity later on will become the thing that we shouldn't be using because, never mind. So self is identity. It's our conviction about what is identity, our conviction about what is self, and not self in the sense of me per se. It's not just me. It's whatever identity that we encounter, whether it is me, whether it is you, whether it is the table, whether it is the chair, whether it is the sirens, whatever identity that we encounter, that we are relating with, our conviction about what it is, that's the view. Okay. And usually when the view is presented, yes, there's a big discussion on self and does it exist, does it not exist? I didn't go into that because I didn't want it to stay at the level of just being philosophy and then becomes just something you put on a shelf. Okay, that's the reason I took that approach. Okay, yeah. And of course, by conviction, please don't leave it at just, oh, I'm convinced that the movie is going to be at 9 o'clock. I'm not talking about that superficial kind of conviction. I'm talking about deep-seated convictions that drive you, that force you to act in the world, in whatever way you find yourself acting in the world. Okay, that's conviction. And of course, we have within us a conviction about who am I? And that conviction makes me act in the world. Okay. And you can begin with psychological identifications, and it goes deeper and deeper into more metaphysical identifications. What is the nature of the self? We have those convictions already. We have convictions about the psychological nature of the self. We have convictions about the metaphysical nature of the self. We have those convictions, and that's what is driving us. Okay. And we have to come to know them. Not just everything is empty. That's a very beautiful, profound thing to say, but what does it mean? Is that going to make you change your behavior tomorrow? Hearing that everything is empty, your nature is empty. It's beautiful, it's profound, but is it functioning for you? Yes, you eventually want to arrive at I guess I am an asshole. I guess I am, I'm not really somebody who's nobody loves. You begin with that, and eventually you come with, I am empty. But you cannot arrive at I am empty if you don't begin with, I guess I am an asshole. Okay. Okay. All right. Who would like to list the 8, the traditional 8? Go on. A lot of you can. List them. Who can Google search the fastest?
We can do popcorn too if you want to just do 1 or 2 and then let others continue your list.
All right. The first one. What's the first one? I mean, I've been saying the word almost all night. And sometimes people say correct rather than right. So all that is no. But I prefer what Nazam aligned. Okay. Come on now.
Okay.
Are we texting them or something? Are we chatting?
I got them. I got
Okay. See.
the right view, the right resolve, the right speech, the right action, the right livelihood, the right effort, the right mindfulness, the right concentration. That's all they had.
Yeah, thank you. So what was I using as a word for right concentration?
Kind of your focus.
Well, that's mindfulness.
Yeah.
Because concentration in this sense is not concentration the way we understand it, but it's like somebody who has mastered it. That's being absorbed in something, right? I mean, in everyday language, when someone is, we say, oh, that person is concentrating on that. That person is absorbed in it, right? That's all for them at that moment. That's all that exists. Okay.
So they're focused.
Yeah, the focus, and they need the focus, and they need the mindfulness. The mindfulness. What term did I use for mindfulness? Well, focus. It's what is it that you allow your mind to be aware of all the time? That's what I was talking about, focus.
Your presence.
Yeah. What is that you are able to be present with?
Your behavior.
That's, yeah. Or, no, being present with your behavior. So that
Right.
just be present, right?
Right.
So that's is your mindfulness. What are you mindful of? What is it that constantly you are aware of? Okay. Your view will determine, your conviction will determine what you find yourself constantly aware of. So that's the mindfulness there. Okay. And the path of least resistance for you, that's, I guess you could debate, but the word I was using the term path of least resistance. What is that you find yourself naturally doing? Okay. In your everyday life, what is it that you find yourself naturally doing? Okay. That's the livelihood. But more ethically speaking, you know, I'll use Nizam's term. Is your livelihood in alignment with your truth? Okay. And some people find themselves in having livelihoods that are in conflict with their truth, and they're very bothered by it because of that. And when I use the term being able to find resources, that's what I was referring to as effort. Like, I'm not convinced at the depth in my being that meditation is of any benefit, even though I may be speaking about how beautiful it is all the time. That's why I'm not able to find the energy to sit when I want to sit. I'm not able to apply effort in sitting because I'm not convinced. But whatever I'm convinced in will give me benefit of watching that movie. I'm able to make the effort. Oh, I got to go all the way downtown to that meditation studio to meditate. Oh, your movie is playing in New Jersey. You find all the ways of to be able to get there. Make the efforts to get there. Okay.
But then,
So,
oh, it might also be that you do think meditation is beneficial, but that you don't think you deserve benefit. Could be the wrong view.
That could be it too. That could be it too. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that would be almost the same play on I want to be loved, but I don't deserve to be loved. I think we covered everything. Thank you, Sia, for reading that, for being the faster at the Google search. So I don't want please do the Google search and read the names, right view, right in some say intentions, to say right resolve, right action, right speech. That I'm calling that behavior. How you relating with how you relating in the world, with yourself in the world and others. Okay. Right livelihood, right effort is livelihood is what do you find yourself naturally doing? Okay. What is that you find yourself able to find resources for naturally? Where is it that you're able to bring your awareness to naturally? That's mindfulness or focus. And then absorption. I prefer the word absorption here. What is that you find yourself sort of like absorbed in? Okay. And if these things are not giving you peace, then they're not in alignment. The effort, the absorption, they're not in alignment with your nature, your truth. All right, I've kept you much longer than promised. Did I ever promise you anything? No. Okay. And I did promise that we should have some sort of dialogue, conversation about these things, and because these things are presented to you almost like from the very beginning when you're studying, depending on what tradition you go to. That is, eventually you come to know them. And the Four Noble Truths, each one has 4 aspects, makes them 16. And if you're able to know the 16 aspects of then you're really good. The thing is, and then like Nizam said, and eventually, you want something else. They become boring. Yeah, Eightfold Noble Path, But they are the very engine of your experiences. Whatever you have, whatever experience you have in your life right here, right now, even your mortgage, okay? I want to make it as real as possible, whatever real is for you. The eight paths are there. That's how you got them. That's how you got there. Okay. And absorption, you could be absorbed in a life that you hate, but you're absorbed in it. There's a reason for that. And it's all linked, all those things are connected. Okay. All right, really now, we have to go. Really kept you for much too long. And thank you very much for your patience, for staying for the length of time. And perhaps the next time we meet, we will do more of everyone talking, dialoguing, to really make it as real as possible so that when you come out of it, you have immediate application. Okay. All right. Well, I'm not going to play the bell because you can't hear it. We're going to do a very quick meditation, the way we end the meditation. And I really, while you're settling your body, having that communication with yourself, you're going to meditate, begin to taste the meditative state. I just want to say thank you to all of you for coming in, and everyone whose direct hands have helped this. Nizam, Matt, and especially Liz for making this format, giving it the professionalism and the beauty that it has now. So now, after I talk, you've tasting meditation, take a nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, let yourself go, feel yourself touching the meditative state with your body, the sense of pleasantness, the calm, the sense of distinctiveness of knowing this is body, this is breath, this is mind. The sense of these experiences being right here, right now. Feel us sitting in a circle. Wherever you are, we are all in your place in a circle. And think the perspective of someone outside looking in is not saying, there is Sia, there is Shell, they're saying, oh, look at them. They see us as one. So let us see ourselves as one. The same way we don't say, this is left hand, right hand, we say, this is me. And that sense of usness, that sense of we-ness manifests as a bright presence in the very center of our circle. And we're all connected to it with a ray of light from our heart to its center. And as the sense of we-ness gets stronger and stronger, that instinct of the right hand helping the left hand, thinking I'm helping me, we have that sense of for each other. And the light in the center gets bigger, brighter, and until we are fully absorbed in that light, and everything around us becomes absorbed in that light. And that attitude of this is me, is we extends until it goes as far as you can go, to the edge of the earth, to the edge of the solar system, all of existence, whatever you can sincerely sort of grasp. And you say we. And now the same instinct you feel for the right hand, it feels for the left hand, you feel it for the ocean. You feel it for the rivers. You feel it for the trees, the grass, the birds flying, the insects crawling, the different animals, your neighbors, and even people who hold different political views than you, us, and that instinct is present. Now that the sense of us is nicely crystallized within us, we don't need this appearance anymore. Then the light begins to shrink back. And as it shrinks, it leaves a shimmer of itself from where it once completely absorbed, until the light comes back in the very center. And that sense of we is even stronger. And we don't even need the appearance of this light in the center for us to have that. Then that light dissolves into each one of us fully. And we have that conviction: by sincerely helping me, I help us. By sincerely helping us, I help me. And whatever gifts we have received from tonight, especially from our own innate wisdom, give thanks and dedicate the merits to whatever is of sincere concern to you, whether it's completely personal, whether it's for someone you know, or a community, whatever. Gewa di kyoken, Sonam yeshe zogzo sheng, Sonam yeshe lechung we, Damba kunye tokpar shu. And witness that you are indeed meditating. Rejoice. Notice the signs in the body, the breath, and the mind, the calm, the pleasantness, the clarity, the radiance, the focus. Now that you are meditating, when you make the intention to come out, there is something to come out of. With the intention to come out, take a nice deep breath. And as you breathe out, let yourself reconnect with your immediate surroundings, deliberately reconnecting through the sense of touch, sense of hearing, and sense of sight. Oh, you're not playing the bell. You're not hearing the bell is correct. It's in alignment with reality. All right, thank you so much, everyone.